camera and I am failing. So bear with me while I work on that. It says Nick. Come on, rotate. Okay, well that's weird. By far the weirdest thing I've seen. Super weird. Okay. I don't know why I didn't have any issues yesterday doing rotating it, but apparently today it doesn't want to rotate. I am driving again, and this is not working for me, like at all. Just not. But I am driving again back from work. Well, actually, I'm driving back from the store. But yeah, let me get out of the parking lot before I start going. But anyway, we're gonna talk about Final Fantasy V. Is it worth buying? Is it worth playing? I'm sure many of you have gotten the Pixel Remaster by now and are probably wondering which one should you start with. Depending on who you ask, you're going to get told Final Fantasy VI. And you know what? Final Fantasy VI is a totally valid Final Fantasy to play. Not my personal favorite. I thought there was too many characters, and there was just no investment in those characters, so I really didn't care. But that being said, it's not a bad game. It's just not my go-to. Final Fantasy VII is my go-to. But let's talk about Final Fantasy V, okay? Because it is the redheaded stepchild of the series. Not really the redheaded stepchild because it doesn't get abused. It's the forgotten child, okay? Let's go with that one, the forgotten child, okay? It's like that Kennedy kid that got locked in the attic back in, like, what, the 60s? That is Final Fantasy V. So, Final Fantasy V, for those of you who do not know, was never released to America when it first came out. It came out much later with the Final Fantasy VI in the form of Final Fantasy anthologies. By the way, if you have Final Fantasy anthologies, you have a gold mine. But Final Fantasy V was unique with the job system. Arguably, it is the best incarnation of the job system of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy III began the job system, but it was very crappy, not the greatest. And then, like, you look at Final Fantasy VI, they didn't have the job system. They went back to the original. Well, you just have the different classes, and you just have to make up the party the way you want it. Okay, fair enough. And then, you know, Final Fantasy VII didn't have anything like that at all. Everyone was kind of their own thing. And Final Fantasy VIII, very similar for the most part. You can, you know, after basically Final Fantasy VII and later, pretty much everyone was customizable through some means within the within the game's universe. And but Final Fantasy V, it followed the cliche story of the crystals, and you have to go and save them to prevent the great evil Exodeth, the great evil tree, from absorbing the power of the void and destroying all life and whatnot. So you travel to each crystal within your home world, and as you fail, because, you know, plot, you get jobs from the crystal shards. So you get, like, when the first crystal blows up, the wind crystal, you get the knight, the monk, the white mage, black mage, blue mage. I think that's it. And those are your beginning classes. Now, obviously, you're probably going to go with this is what I recommend. This is not me saying this is the best way, because obviously everyone is different. Now, what I do, I always have my main character, which is Bartz. I always have him be a knight. Knight has great abilities, such as the two-handed ability. So if you want to use a sword two-handed, which is a stronger it, and you want that on your bear class or on your mime class, you'll want that ability. Especially for the equipped sword, because like if you're in a mime class, you can't equip swords, like knight swords. So you need that ability if you want to equip Excalibur at the end. The second character, Reyna, I usually make her a monk, and here's why. A lot of people go and make her a mage. Here's why I don't do that. Really, you want everyone to have physical strength, and the monk is the best one. His physical attributes, or hers, I wouldn't say, but the monk's physical attributes transfer over to the mime and bear class. Well, they all transfer over, but it's always the best one that takes the place. So if, for example, I had Bart's be a knight and I mastered it, but I also had him master a monk, he will only get the monk's physical strength attributes and health attributes. So it's not that it's a waste of time to master all the different physical ones. It's just you need to determine what you're going to prioritize for the attributes you want on the bear or mime class. So Bart's always a knight, Reyna I always do a monk, and then Goluf I always do a white mage, and then Ferris I always do black mage. Now, it is important to note that if you want to get Shiva as soon as possible, you do want someone to learn the blue mage's abilities of learn and then blue magic, because early on in the game, Shiva's actually probably one of the harder bosses because she's optional. Plus she has, I think, 3 or 4 commanders with her, very strong soldiers, and they can all use magic, ice magic. She'll be blasting you away with Blizzara and stuff, and you don't want that. So what your best bet is you learn the frog song. I think they call it Pond Song or Pond something, I don't know. But the frog song. You want to learn that, and then you want to cast it on each of the soldiers. It turns them into frogs, and then you can just eliminate them super easy. And then after that, you can take down Shiva fairly quickly. And that's on you if you want Shiva. I recommend getting her because when you go to Karnak and you got to go to the fire ship, you need ice, and you get the summoner ability with the water crystal. Or maybe you don't. I don't remember. And I just played it. I can't remember. No, because you can get Shiva at Waltz. So you have to be able to get this. Yeah, you got to have the summoner class. So you get the summoner class and you can summon Shiva. I recommend it for the fire ship because the boss in the fire temple is very difficult. And you'll have Blizzara at this point, but having Shiva is just an added bonus because she's stronger than what your black mage will be able to do at the time. So, totally recommend that. Now, for the white mage, you really don't need to master white mage. You just want to get to the point of white magic level 6 or 5, whatever the highest white magic is. So once you get that, you can switch Goluf to the Summoner. The Summoner has the highest magic stats, so that's the one you want to focus on if you're wanting magic users. So my recommendation, this is what I do for the final boss. I want everyone to get the best physical strength stats. That is going to be the monk. I want everyone to get the best magical stats. And then you want everyone to get dual cast. That is from the red mage. Super frustrating to get. Luckily, the booster really helping to get. And then, of course, you want everyone to either learn the mime ability or just be the mime. Because the mime and the bear are very similar in that they take the stats of all the masters. The best of the master ones. So, because what you're going to want to do is, and there's multiple ways to fight Exodeath. Double summoning Bahamut is a great way to win. One thing I really do though is with Bartz, I will have him master the ninja ability and have him dual wields, and then he will wield the Excalibur and another sword. I've used the Massamune before, but you can also just use the next best blade besides Excalibur, and then you can dual wield those. And then you want to use Rapid Fire from the Mastered Archer, and you will hit your enemies 8 times. Now, when you're in the low 40s, if you get to the low level 40s, you'll be doing, with Rapid Fire, you'll be doing about 8,000 damage with that one character alone. And then, of course, you can mine this, depending on what you've equipped everyone with, they'll do the same. So if they have 2 weapons, they'll do 8 hits. But they're, again, you have to set them up that way. So if you haven't, like I had Reyna, or Lena, I think is how they changed her name in the remastered version. I had her with Bare Fist, so she'd have the monk's strength in unarmed combat, and so whenever Bartz would do his 8 hits, she would mime it. So you need mime, double cast, Bahamut, and then you want to max out Summoner for magic. If you have those 4 things, you will win hands down, no problem. Everything else isn't necessarily necessary, but I do recommend having everyone learn Monk, the Monk's abilities and stuff, because it transfers a nice HP bonus, physical strength, obviously, and you want that. Now, that's all of what to do and how to get through it. But now, is Final Fantasy V worth playing? Yes, the story is good. Rabtoons, they mock it as the cliche crystal story, and they're doing it in all good fun. But the story is cliche, but it is good nonetheless. It's different. It's not like Final Fantasy IV where you're like looking for like 50 crystals and people are committing suicide every like there's an actual story, there's depth and whatnot. Good cast of characters. They all have development. They all have an arc that gets finished, which is something that not all Final Fantasies say. Even 7 struggles in that aspect. It's not really buggy. It has memorable characters such as Gilgamesh. He's definitely comedic in Final Fantasy V, but he's just hilarious. He also has like the best armor in the game to steal from. And that's something you want to do. You want to steal that for whatever character you want to equip that with. But Final Fantasy V, it really does hold up. It is. I recommend it. I really do. 100% recommend Final Fantasy V. It's a good game. Great way to experience Final Fantasy. It is challenging. It can be very challenging, especially if you're used to like Final Fantasy 7 or 9, where the mechanics are not very difficult to understand, because Final Fantasy V is different in comparison to them. But it's pretty easy to catch on what you're supposed to do, and if you can get a guide, that helps even more. But like if you want to introduce someone to the Final Fantasy series, 5 is not a bad place to start, to be honest. And that's if you want to introduce them to classic Final Fantasy. Now if you're going to introduce them to modern Final Fantasy, 100% do Final Fantasy 7. Because Final Fantasy 7 is very, very easy to grasp in terms of mechanics and everything. But 100% play Final Fantasy V. It is good. There are some heartwarming moments. Like when you go get Phoenix on Phoenix Tower. It's a gut punch. It hurts. Getting Sildra, I recommend it 100%. It's totally worth it. It's one of my favorites. You know, out of all the Final Fantasy. So I truly recommend it. But it is a good game. If I would love to see a remake of it, to be honest. I'd love to see a remake of Final Fantasy V because it is good. It's a solid game. It holds up. It will keep your attention. Ethically good, considering that it came out so long ago. But you know, not everyone can handle the no-necks of the olden, the bygone era. But you know, like I said, I recommend it. I do. It's a good one. It really is. You know, now granted, X-Death and Golbez look like identical. So it's very easy to confuse the Final Fantasy when they were mocking it and whatnot. So, but I would say X-Death is a pretty cool villain, and honestly, and then you know these people are like, hey, we're just gonna store the world's evil inside him, and you know, screw that guy. So I mean, honestly, X-Death has a right to be kind of in a bad mood. I mean, he was essentially violated against his will, and he was a tree. He couldn't do anything. It was horrible. So, you know, he decided he was going to come to life and destroy everything. You know, he probably could have just went and got drunk and, you know, maybe talked to a therapist, but, you know, he decided to go annihilate all life in the universe. And sometimes that happens, you know? What can you do? It's one of those classic Emperor Nero things, you know? It's like, yeah, you slept with your sister, and that there's a lot of trauma in that. But, you know, just go get drunk, talk to a therapist, don't have Emperor Nero and how he bagged his sister. It's kind of weird. But, Final Fantasy V, play it, because it is deliciously awesome. Great game. 100% recommend it. It's definitely top 10 Final Fantasy. Not that there's that many Final Fantasy. That was definitely not in the top 10. But yeah. Speaking of job systems, though, I forgot I was going to talk about the other Final Fantasies that had job systems. 12 doesn't count because they just brought in the Zodiac Age job system, so that doesn't count. Final Fantasy X2 did a job system, and they did it very poorly. They did it very similar to like Final Fantasy. Well, I don't really know. I haven't played Final Fantasy 3 to the point that I can switch job classes yet, but I didn't like Final Fantasy X2's job system because while yes, you could change it to any particular job at any moment, it just didn't work out well to me because you waste a turn turning into the new job, so it just didn't work out. The Sailor Moon dancing was cool. But alright, I am back home, and that's all I got to really say about Final Fantasy V. Great game, play it, totally worth it. You will not regret it. Until next time, I am Baron Strife with Final Fantasy Theory. You have a great weekend.